Welcome everybody to the Single and Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima and I'm a matchmaker and dating coach at Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I'm also the founder of Single and Stilettos. Today we have on our show Robert Manni, and he's the author of The Guy's Guide to Love. And I'm so excited to have him here today because he's going to tell you the 5 things women need to know about men, amongst many other things, but we only have time for 5. So Robert, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Suzanne, and thank you to your audience.
Great. Well, before we jump into these 5 things, I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit about you and this book that you wrote.
Okay, well, it's a novel. It's about 2 men competing for love, sex, power, and money in the world of advertising. It's really like a male Sex in the City. It gives women a peek behind the tent, behind the tent in terms of how men think, and it's not so bad. And it's a story.
Exactly. And ladies, I will tell you, you will love the book. I was hooked from the very first chapter. So go get his book. All right, Robert. So let's jump into this. What are 5 things that women need to know about men? I know number 1, this is so obvious, but ladies, you need to hear it from him.
Well, obviously, men are sexually wired and maybe a little bit differently than women. I don't know, but it seems like, men are thinking about sex a lot. And whenever they meet a woman or check out women, there's some type of sexual aspect of it on their mind. You may not like hearing that. That's just the way it is. Now, it's not going to be something that's like a cloud over the relationship, or even if a guy sees a woman walking down the street, he sees her, he might think about sex for a minute, but that doesn't mean that's all he's going to think about. But men have the spine of a man is driven sexually.
That's a good point, because while he may think of it initially, that may not be his only intent. It may move into getting to know you and all of those other things, right?
Yeah, and if it's somebody that, you meet in business or whatever, you might think, oh, sexually, without like playing out a scenario in his mind necessarily, but think like, oh, she's hot or whatever, and then he'll get on with the business if he's a professional. But, men are they're driven sexually.
Right. Okay, so that's no surprise, ladies. I hope not. Okay, so number 2 is what you see is what you get. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, guys are less subtextual, if you will, than women. Right? Pretty much they say what they think. If you ask them a question, you'll usually get, it's a little bit different with females and men, because guys can put on airs a little bit, and I'll get to that in another point. But for the most part, what you see is what you're going to get. If guys aren't like total imposters. They're pretty much straightforward. If you ask them a question, you'll get a pretty straightforward answer. You can tell a lot by how a guy dresses, just his overall demeanor, how he holds himself, his confidence level, his sense of humor. They're not that tough to figure out.
Unless he's a player.
Exactly.
And that's a whole nother video. We're not even going to get into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 3 is, what do you mean by patronizing women?
Well, this is the kind of the little curveball where most guys and a guy's guy will give you kind of, he is what he is, and it's straightforward, and that's the way there is. But there's a lot of guys who patronize women, and they'll tell women what they want to hear, with one goal in mind, which was topic number 1 that we talked about, which is sex. And I think women have to be careful about that. Like, is the guy really a feminist, or is he just telling me this stuff? Is the guy telling me what I want to hear, or this is what he really feels? And a lot of guys will put down other guys and just play along to try to get over with women. And the woman has to use her own filter and qualification and to sort out, is this guy full of beans or is he for real?
So basically it goes to that last tip about being a player, right? Trying to feel him out if he's a player.
Yeah, exactly. And there's ways to do that. I mean, we can have a whole separate discussion on that, but there's ways to sort that out.
Okay, so tip number 4 is men are driven by fear and ego.
Yeah, now this is not a put down. This is just the world we live in. Men are competitive with each other. Men are a lot of times ultimately they're loners. We don't confide in each other in terms of how we feel about stuff or questions. We tend to be left to sort things out on our own. And so more than a desire to win, a lot of guys have a fear of losing. And you'll even hear professional athletes and people who are very famous say the same thing, that it was the fear of losing versus the desire to win that drove them. And whatever works. Everybody's a little bit different that way, but all men have fear, even though they might show it, and all men have ego, deep egos, and that's an issue that men have to wrestle with because, as we know, ego gets in the way of our connectivity and how we relate to other people. And I think women have their egos a little more in check, particularly when it comes to relationships, than men do. Men have big egos. I have one. It's something I've wrestled with my whole life. Every guy I know has a big ego in one way or another, and we're all super competitive with one another.
So does that go along with the thought process of a man likes to compete for a woman, or if a woman plays hard to get?
I think every guy's different that way. To me, my, dating, I didn't really need to compete, but of course I wanted to be with a woman that I felt that was desirable.
Right.
But some guys I'm sure are turned on to the fact that there's competition for a specific woman. I think guys are a little bit different that way. But overall, men are competitive, whether it's in golf or in tiddlywinks or in just betting on the horses or whatever, running a race, any work, anything. Guys will compete. So I guess you could say that a lot of guys like the competition of winning a woman. I think the idea of winning a woman's heart is a competition in its own way. It doesn't have to be versus another guy, but just the aspect of winning is something that can drive a guy.
Right.
So not being too easy. I would advise women make the guy work a little bit.
Right, but don't play too hard to get where you play games and it's a huge turnoff to a man, ladies.
Well, they'll turn away. What happens is if they see that that's happening, a guy a little bit is okay, but then at a certain point, a guy will say, "I don't need the head games."
Right.
So guys, unless they're a player, they're not going to play head games with women.
Right. Okay, so tip number 5 is deep down, men really want a solid relationship.
Yeah, I mean, everybody likes to sow their wild oats and everything, and there's times when you just want to date and it's comfortable, but ultimately, guys prefer to get into a relationship to have something that's reliable where the woman that they're with is attractive, she's a friend, she's somebody he can confide in. It's a lot more fun to do that with a woman than with a guy friend, and then also you have the physical and intimacy aspects of it. So I think deep down, even if guys say they want to date, ultimately if they could find the right woman, they'd be a lot happier. So don't think when guys say they just want to date that they just want to date. They really, that's just a way of defensive mechanism of saying like, I'm interested in a relationship, but I don't want to rush.
Right, and it's ultimately, I think everyone would be happier if they just found the right person, right?
You would think. I mean, now that I'm married, it's like, oh, I don't meet that many women anymore the same way. And there was always fun and a thrill to that. I always like meeting new people, but you have to grow up and you have to put it into a different context where, once you're in a relationship, then it's like, am I missing out on all those women that are out there or all the men that are out there? And it's a maturity thing where you have to say, okay, well, what do I have and what am I missing and what's more valuable? And then I think you ultimately, most people make the right decision saying, if I've got everything I need here at home, I don't need to go out to get it. But if I don't have it, then maybe I'm not in the right relationship and I need to be out there more. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Right.
It's human nature.
Exactly. Well, these have been some great tips. So, Robert, tell our audience how they can find you and your book.
Well, very simply, the best way to find me is, and my book, is robertmanni.com, MANNI.com. There's three free chapter excerpt of the book, connections to my Guys Guide weekly radio podcast, and also there's some videos, and there's 240 blog posts on everything from life, love, and the pursuit of happiness.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on the Single and Stiletto Show. If you like our show, it's available both in video format and podcast format. If you like to get the videos, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. And if you like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. If you'd like to get our free ebook on the 3 secrets guaranteed to attract any man based on scientific research, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to singleandstilettos.com.